In this video, we'll be showing you the best snakebite lineups to use as Viper on every single map. You'll mainly be using this ability post-plant to stop enemies from defusing, but it can be used in other situations to give your team the slight edge. These lineups are useful for most games, but as always, be a responsible Valorant player and make sure to do what's best for your team at that time. After watching this, you'll be able to help your team secure more wins and utilise Viper that much better. If you line up by this wall on the attacker's spawn side on Ascent, you can then line your crosshair up with this protruding spike and move it to the right a bit. If you shoot a snakebite here, it will go right into A site and land in the back right hand corner of heaven. Players love to hold this angle right at the start of the round, so it could force them to reposition or even get your team a free pick whilst they evade the toxin. Just outside of the defender's spawn at mid, you can stand by this lamp and aim up at the middle of the roof here. Now aim down and left until you're in the middle, and aim up until you're in line with the buildings poking over the top of it. Once you release it, it will fly all the way over to the attacker's side, and land around where they'll be peeking from. This is a good way to get some early damage off on players that have been peeking this corner early in the game. For a good post-plant snakebite on B site, you can stand in the corner on the right of the archway in B main, and move left until you see this tree. Aim roughly at the top of the tree and fire. This will bounce off the back wall and land right in the middle of the boxes, covering most of the areas around it. A great and simple way to ensure you win a round by clearing out the area and preventing a defuse. The first bottom bind can be used to cover the corner of the A site where people usually like to wall off and plant. If you hop onto this ledge near A short and line up with the left corner, you can look up at the corner of the building and aim slightly to the right of it. If you shoot a snakebite here, it will land directly onto the exact corner and stop anyone who might be trying to defuse. It can also be used if you're trying to flank the attacking team whilst they are pushing and you know that they've walled off that corner. To get a snakebite to land right into hookah from B link, you can line up on the stairs and look up at this gap in the roof. Line up with the side of the cloud on the left and aim into the top right corner of it. Make sure that the cloud is only just visible behind the wooden panels. Then aim a little bit up and fire. This will land directly into hookah and will corner off the left hand side as you enter, stopping any players that are holding angles from that side being able to move out, and it could also do some damage to other players holding the right too. If you stand in the defender's side spawn, you can line up the corner of this wall with the top corner of this building, and then look directly up in line with the bottom of this cloud. Then slightly to the left and this will land right on the corner of B site, where people like to get a quick plant off, stopping people from either planting or defusing. Moving on to Breeze, you can line up in the corner of this rock and barrel, then look up above the roof in front of you. If you line up the line under the 100 with the bottom of the angled piece of wood like this, you can shoot a snakebite that will land right into the corner of the right hand pyramid at A site. This can cover people defusing or planting, and seeing as it takes a while to land, you can get ready to peek in the cave whilst it's in the air, then clear the site once it lands. This spot over at the B site might be my favourite so far. Stand next to the wall in line with these grey bricks, then look up at the leaves hanging over the wall. Line up the top of the second line of your toxin bar with the bottom of the gap between the leaves and the wall here. Then move your crosshair slightly to the right. When you fire this, it will land on the left hand side of the tower in B from attacker's spawn. This is a popular place for people to plant the bomb, as they are hidden from most entrances, so it can be used very effectively to protect a bomb that you or your teammate has planted. If you line up to this corner next to a rope, you can look up and align the target above your left click icon where this faint grey line and the edge meet. Fire a normal left click shot and it will loop over into A and land right on top of the plant site. This will cover any bombs planted in the corner or do some damage to anyone hiding here. You can also use the same corner for the typical plant spot underneath the platform at A. Line up in it again, but this time line up the bottom right hand corner of your toxin bar with the corner of these two lines. Then fire a normal shot. This will again loop right over, but this time it will land right next to the cover underneath the platform where players often hide to plant. I imagine you'll be using this one a little bit more than the other, as it's a very common spot for people to plant. Over at the B site, you can line up with this grey line on the wall by B tree. Then turn around and align the target above your left click icon with the bottom corner of the glass next to you, but make sure to line up with the darker grey line inside. The target of the left click icon should be covering the top corner of this. Then move forward and shoot near enough at the same time to give it some more distance. This will travel right into B and bounce back off the wall, covering this corner on the site where people usually like to plant. On Haven, you can cover the usual A site plant area by standing in this corner and lining up your snakebite keybind with the bottom of the gap between the building behind and the electrical box on the wall here. Make sure that the keybind sits in the gap between them, right at the bottom, then fire a normal shot. This will go over the building in front and land to the right of the boxes where people usually wall off and plant. Haven B site is awkward in general for lineups, and Viper's snakebite is no different. You can, however, get a pretty simple and somewhat useful one by standing with your back to the wall in the attacker's side spawn and looking right up at the peak of the roof in front. This will fly over the buildings in front of you and land right in the entrance of B, which people do tend to use to get a quick plant off, especially if your team is running a Sage who can wall off either side. The main planting area on C can be covered by standing with your back to the wall at C long, whilst also being in line with the edge of this wooden panel in front of you. Then look up until the bottom of this line on your toxin bar lines up with this corner of the mountain ahead of you. Then a simple left click shot will send the snakebite right over the buildings and into C, landing directly in the corner which players usually plant in. Moving over to Icebox, you can stand outside the doorway to A on the attacker's side spawn and look at this red arrow immediately to the left of the panel on the wall. Now you want to move backwards until this grey line is just poking out over the ledge. This should line your crosshair up with the end of the line and the arrow. Now when you fire it, it will land directly into the corner of the site, which is also a popular planting spot. Now over to 2 lineups you can use at B site. This one will cover the corner of the site where players will push in and plant. Stand in this corner next to the strips of metal and look up at the end of this black line on the crane above. Now move your crosshair up until it's in the middle of the thicker black line and do a jump shot. This will fly up and over the crane, landing directly on the corner of the site. The second shot is fairly similar but will cover the most popular planting spot at B. Again, stand in the same corner, but this time you'll want to look at the faint white line at the bottom of your HUD. The very end of this is going to line up with this tiny white dot on the crate to the right. I have shot the dot to make it a little bit more clear for the tutorial, but once you know it's there you'll have no trouble. Your crosshair should end up around here, between the 2 metal bars. Fire a normal shot and it will loop all the way over and land directly next to the green box where people will plant at. Onto the final map, Split, there's a nice lineup at attacker spawn A side that you can use. Stand in this corner between the wall and the planter and aim right up at the corner of the faint skyscraper in front of you. Then move your crosshair over to the bar of light on the right while staying in line with that corner. If you fire it here, it will loop over the wall and land right behind the centre box at A. This will cover the main areas where people plant and even cover a bit round each edge of it. Over at mid, you can stand near the top of the stairs on the defender's side and aim at the end of this faint grey line on the doorway. Make sure to line it up with the right hand edge of this protruding wall here. Then walk forwards as you fire it so it goes a little bit further. This will bounce off the wall ahead right into the corner that the attackers will hold if they're pushing into mid. This isn't so much a strategic lineup but more of an information one. It can work as a good way to get some damage off early doors though. On the attacker's side spawn of B Garage, you can stand in the corner of these metal sheets and the wall and look up at the tiny light dot on the left. This is what you'll be lining the bottom of the V keybind up with. Then look at the second line down on the edge of the roof here and line up the bottom corner of your toxin bar with it. Once that's lined up, you'll want to jump and immediately fire your snakebite, so the momentum of the jump sends it further. This will launch it all the way over the top of the tower at B site and will actually make it land in this tiny gap behind the wall. The capture will bounce off of the wall all the way down and land right on the box where people will be planting or defusing. A couple of tips for this one are that you'll need to have placed your poison cloud so that the keybind is showing. Then if you want to make it even easier for yourself, you can use V as the keybind for the poison cloud. This makes it so it almost points down at the white dot. It will take a little bit of practice to get this one right more times than not, but I managed to get it a few times in a row after about 20 minutes of trying, so not too bad. So there were our best snakebite lineups for every map on Valorant. Let us know in the comments if you'll be using some of these the next time you play as Viper, and don't forget to subscribe for some more gaming guide videos. Thank you all for watching and we'll see you in the next video.